They thought humans had zero gravity resistance, until Dexter Flynn survived a Deathworld level challenge and asked for round 2. Vexar the Unmovable stood in the center of the combat arena. All 4 of his massive arms crossed over his chitinous chest, looking every bit like the undefeated champion he was. The Korthak warrior had literally crushed 47 opponents in this very ring. His specialty, gravity manipulation. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, just good old-fashioned physics turned up to 11 until his opponents collapsed under their own weight like overripe fruit. The arena on Station Terminus 7 was packed tighter than a cargo hold full of Blinthian sleep pods. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species crammed into the stands, their various appendages waving fistfuls of credits, their multiple eyes glued to the crimson sand below. The air reeked of excitement, cheap fried Thorgan tentacles, and the particular musk that only a crowd of nervous gamblers could produce. Above the arena, holographic displays flickered with betting odds that shifted faster than a Vexlarian diplomat changed allegiances. Vexar's odds sat at a comfortable 1 to 50. His opponent? Well, let's just say betting on the other guy was either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity. Ladies, gentlemen, and sentient gas clouds, the announcer's voice boomed through the stadium speakers, each word dripping with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for announcing the heat death of the universe. Tonight, we have a special treat. Vexar the Unmovable, gravity master of the Korthak Empire, faces a challenger from a species so new to the galactic stage that half of you probably can't even pronounce their planet's name. A door at the far end of the arena hissed open with dramatic flair. Smoke machines, because apparently every species in the galaxy agreed that smoke machines made everything better, pumped white clouds across the sand, and out walked Dexter Flynn. He was, by any reasonable standard, unremarkable. Average height for a human, which meant short by galactic standards, lean build, dark hair that looked like it had lost a fight with a pillow. He wore simple athletic clothes, dark blue and gray, and carried a small backpack slung over one shoulder. No armor, no weapons, no protective gear whatsoever. He looked like he was heading to a gym, not a fight to the death. The crowd's roar dimmed to confused murmuring. Several aliens checked their tickets, convinced there had been some mistake. Dexter Flynn waved at the crowd with a casual smile, like he was greeting neighbors at a weekend barbecue. Vexar's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement or possibly anticipation of an early lunch. Vexar began his usual pre-fight ritual, which consisted of flexing all 4 arms in sequence, creating a rippling wave of muscle that had made more than one opponent forfeit on the spot. His exoskeleton gleamed under the arena lights, polished to a mirror shine that flecked terrified faces of anyone foolish enough to look directly at him. He slammed his lower arms into the sand, creating small craters, then raised his upper arms toward the ceiling in a gesture that universally translated to "I am about to ruin your day." The crowd ate it up naturally. Cheers erupted from the Korthak section, a wall of clicking mandibles that sounded like 1,000 typewriters having a synchronized seizure. From the commentary booth, a 3-eyed Peluvian named Kresht was providing analysis for the home viewers. For those just tuning in, folks, Vexar has ended 17 fights without his opponent even reaching him. At 10 gravities, most species' internal organs simply stop functioning properly. Their own blood becomes too heavy to pump. Their bones compress under their own mass. It is, and I cannot stress this enough, extremely unpleasant. His co-commentator, a floating jellyfish-like being named Kulmara, pulsed in agreement. The human appears to be, and I am reading his biometrics here, completely relaxed. Heart rate at 62 beats per cycle. That is either incredible confidence or incredible ignorance. I am going with ignorance, Kresht replied, his middle eye rolling independently of the other two. Down in the arena, a small medical drone hovered near Dexter, performing the mandatory pre-fight scan. Its synthesized voice chirped warnings in standard galactic. Contestant Flynn, official records indicate your species has no natural gravity resistance, no exoskeleton, no redundant organ systems, and frankly a skeletal structure that looks like it was designed by a committee that never agreed on anything. Do you wish to forfeit? Dexter shrugged, adjusting the straps on his backpack. Nah, I am good. Thanks though. Appreciate the concern. The drone's lights flickered in what might have been electronic confusion before it zipped away to a safe distance. Vexar stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow that swallowed Dexter whole. When the Korthak spoke, his voice rumbled like tectonic plates having a disagreement. Human, I will give you one chance. Surrender now, And I will make your collapse quick. Painless even. Your species is fragile. I have seen your anatomy charts. You are held together by hope and stubbornness. Dexter looked up, way up at the towering alien warrior. He tilted his head, considering the offer with the same level of seriousness one might give to a restaurant menu. Then he smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a brave face in the midst of terror smile. A genuinely amused smile. You know what, Dexter said, his voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet arena. I actually skipped breakfast this morning. Came straight from my quarters. So I am thinking, yeah, let us see how this goes. Should be fun. Fun. The human said fun. In the stands, a Veltraxian merchant who had bet his entire savings on Vrexar suddenly wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The referee, a floating orb that was probably sentient but nobody had ever bothered to confirm, emitted a shrill tone that signaled the start of the match. It then wisely retreated to the absolute furthest corner of the arena, because even automated officiating systems had survival instincts. Vrexar wasted no time. His body began to glow with a sickly purple luminescence, the telltale sign of his gravity manipulation activating. The air around him shimmered like heat waves rising from sun-baked metal. He thrust all four arms toward Dexter, and the gravitational field expanded outward in a visible ripple. 2 gravities. Double Earth's standard pull. The arena held its collective breath, various respiratory systems pausing in anticipation of the human's immediate collapse. Dexter blinked, looked down at himself, looked back up at Vrexar. Oh, he said, rolling his shoulders in a slow circle. Is that it? Are we starting? Quilmara's gelatinous body quivered in the commentary booth. Did he just ask if they were starting? The gravitational field is active. Sensors confirm 2 gravities. Perhaps humans have faulty nerve endings, Kresh suggested, his 3 eyes all focused intently on his monitors. Maybe he has not realized he should be in excruciating pain yet. Down in the arena, Dexter bent forward, touched his toes with ease, then straightened and twisted his torso left and right. Small pops and cracks echoed through the stadium's audio pickups. Ah, that is nice. Had a crick in my lower back all morning. This is actually helping. Vrexar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of confusion among Korthak warriors. This was not how this usually went. Typically at 2 gravities his opponents were on their knees, struggling to breathe, begging for mercy or at least a quick death. This human was doing stretches, casual stretches, the kind of stretches people did before jogging. You barely notice. Vrexar's voice carried an edge now, pride mixing with the first hint of concern. Impossible. Your species evolved on a light gravity world. I have seen the charts. Dexter finished his stretching routine and cracked his knuckles, one hand and then the other, each pop sounding unnaturally loud in the confused silence of the arena. Light gravity? Buddy, Earth sits at 1G. This is just like twice that. I have worn weighted vests heavier than this for cardio. The translator circuits struggled with the term cardio before settling on voluntary exercise torture in standard galactic. Vrexar's glow intensified. Fine. The human wanted to pretend to be tough. He would learn. 4 gravities slammed into the arena like a hammer. The sand beneath their feet compressed, grains fusing together under the pressure. The air itself seemed to groan. In the stands, several lighter gravity species felt the edges of the field and immediately scooted their seats backward, suddenly very interested in being anywhere else. Dexter's knees bent slightly. He leaned forward a bit, adjusting his center of balance. Then he straightened back up, rolled his neck once, twice, and met Vrexar's eyes with an expression of mild interest. Okay, yeah, now I feel it, Dexter admitted, nodding like a wine connoisseur acknowledging a decent vintage. This is more like it. Kind of feels like that time I went hiking in the mountains with a 50-pound pack. Good times. In the commentary booth, Kresh's middle eye twitched. This is medically impossible. His bone density cannot be sufficient for this. His cardiovascular system should be failing. Unless, Quilmara pulsed slowly, a rhythm that indicated deep thought. Unless the data on human physiology is incomplete. Or completely wrong, Kresh added. Down in the arena, Vrexar stared at the human who should have been paced by now, and for the first time in 47 fights, felt something he had not experienced in years. Doubt. Vrexar decided to stop playing around. If 4 gravities did not work, then 6 would. 6 gravities was his professional standard, the setting that had turned a Rendorian battle chief into a whimpering puddle, the level that had made a cybernetically enhanced Krill warrior's implants literally tear through his own flesh from the weight. The purple glow around Rexar's body became almost blinding. Sweat, or whatever Korthak secreted when exerting themselves, began to bead on his carapace. 6 gravities was not easy to maintain. It required focus, energy, and a significant portion of his considerable strength. The gravitational field expanded, intensified, and pressed down on the arena like the weight of a small moon. Dexter's expression changed. His eyebrows rose slightly. His mouth formed a small O of realization. Then he sat down. Not collapsed, not fell. Sat down, cross-legged, in the middle of the arena, like he was about to have a picnic. The crowd's confusion reached a fever pitch. Several species began arguing in their native languages, gesticulating wildly, clearly debating whether this was some bizarre human death ritual they were witnessing. "Folks, I do not even know what I am seeing right now," Crushed stammered into his microphone. The human just sat down, voluntarily, at 6 gravities. Dexter swung his backpack around to his front, unzipped it with movements that were only slightly slower than normal, and began rummaging inside. The sound of crinkling wrappers echoed through the arena's premium audio system. He pulled out a protein bar, chocolate chip flavor, based on the brown specks visible through the wrapper. Then beef jerky, a whole bag of it. Then a juice pouch, bright orange with a small straw attached to the side. Rexar watched this happening, his mandibles frozen half open, his brain struggling to process the reality unfolding before him. Dexter tore open the protein bar wrapper with his teeth, a feat that required surprising dexterity under 6 times normal gravity, and took a substantial bite. He chewed slowly, thoughtfully, like a food critic considering the flavor notes. "Oh man," Dexter said around his mouthful, "I was hungrier than I thought. This is hitting the spot." Quilmar's entire gelatinous body turned a deep purple, a color that indicated extreme distress among her species. He is eating. The human is eating, at 6 gravities. While his opponent maintains a killing field, he is having a snack. "This cannot be happening," Crest muttered. All 3 of his eyes now locked onto a single monitor, as if staring hard enough would make reality make sense again. "This violates approximately 17 different biological principles." Dexter moved on to the jerky, pulling out a long strip and biting off a chunk. The sound of his chewing was clearly audible in the stunned silence of the arena. He punctured the juice pouch with the tiny straw, a maneuver that took 3 attempts under the increased gravity but succeeded nonetheless, and took a long sip. Tropical punch," he said appreciatively. Rexar's forearms began to tremble. Maintaining 6 gravities was exhausting, and his opponent was not even standing anymore. He was sitting there, having lunch, acting like the crushing gravitational force was a minor inconvenience at best. Dexter looked up, noticed Rexar's shaking limbs, and his face brightened with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Hey, you doing okay there, big guy? You look like you are straining pretty hard. You want some jerky? Protein helps with endurance. I have got plenty." He held up the bag, offering it across the 3 meters of sand between them. The offer hung in the air, absurd and sincere in equal measure. In the stands, a Blinthian financier fainted, his dreams of easy profit evaporating like water on a hot plate. Several bookmakers were frantically recalculating odds, their digital displays flickering with numbers that made less sense with each passing second. A small child, some kind of fuzzy 6-legged species, tugged on their parent's appendage. "Why is the small one feeding? Is that a dominance display?" The parent had no answer. Nobody had answers anymore. Dexter took another bite of his protein bar, completely comfortable, sitting cross-legged under 6 times Earth's gravity like he was relaxing in a park on a pleasant Sunday afternoon. Rexar stared at the offered jerky bag, and something deep in his warrior's pride cracked like ancient ice. Rexar did not take the jerky. Instead he roared, a sound that started deep in his thorax, and erupted from his mandibles like a sonic weapon. The roar said many things, most of them variations on "I am a decorated warrior and this is humiliating beyond measure." 8 gravities crashed down on the arena. The sand compacted so hard it began to fuse into glass at the edges of the gravitational field. The protective barriers around the audience flickered and strained. 3 camera drones fell from the sky, their anti-gravity systems overwhelmed, clattering to the ground in expensive heaps of broken technology. Dexter grunted softly, shifted his sitting position slightly, and continued eating his jerky. "Okay, now we are talking," he said, genuine appreciation in his voice. 8 Gs. This is a solid workout. My gym back home has a centrifuge that goes to 7.5, but 8 is nice. Really makes you focus on your breathing. He demonstrated by taking a deep, controlled breath, his chest expanding against the gravitational pressure, then exhaling slowly through his nose. Vrexar's entire body was glowing now, bright purple like a malfunctioning reactor. Maintaining 8 gravities was pushing him to his limits. His career record was 9.2 gravities, held for 45 seconds, and it had nearly killed him from the exertion. But the human was still sitting there, still eating, still breathing normally. You see, Dexter continued, taking another sip of his juice pouch, the straw bending slightly under the pressure. Earth is kind of what you might call a high-gravity world. We are at 1G naturally, which I guess is pretty dense compared to most places. I did not really think about it much until I got out here and everyone kept talking about how heavy our planet is. Crest's voice cracked over the stadium speakers. 1 full gravity? As a baseline? That is a Class 4 Deathworld classification. Deathworld seems a bit dramatic, Dexter said, apparently able to hear the commentary or just used to people calling his planet extreme. We just call it Earth. Home. You know where the heart is and all that. Vrexar pushed harder. His mandibles clenched so tight they creaked. His exoskeleton began to crack at the joints, thin lines appearing in the chitin from the internal pressure of channeling so much gravitational force. 10 gravities. 10 gravities flooded the arena like a tidal wave of physics gone mad. The crowd gasped, screamed, or made whatever sound their species produced when witnessing something that should not be possible. Medical drones hovered at the ready, certain they were about to scrape human remains off the arena floor. Dexter rocked forward slightly, planted his hands on the sand and pushed himself up to standing. It took effort, visible effort, his muscles tensing and his face showing actual concentration for the first time since the fight began. He stood there for a moment adjusting to the new pressure, then nodded to himself. 10 Gs. Nice. This is about what it feels like when you are pulling out of a dive, you know? He addressed this to Vrexar, like they were colleagues discussing shop. I went skydiving last month off the northern continent. When you pull your chute and the harness catches, that sudden deceleration feels a lot like this. Bit more pressure on the shoulders with the harness but similar overall sensation. He rolled his shoulders again, working out the tension. Oh, deep sea diving. Dexter continued, his eyes lighting up with the memory. Went down about 200 meters once. Did not have the fancy pressure suit. Just a regular diving rig. The water pressure at that depth. Also, kind of like this. Makes your ears pop something fierce. And you have got to be careful with your lungs, but you adapt pretty quick. Vrexar was panting now, each breath a labored wheeze. His forearms trembled constantly. Maintaining 10 gravities was destroying him from the inside out. His secondary heart was racing. His primary heart was struggling to keep up, and his tertiary heart, the little one that usually just handled his extremities, was considering filing a formal complaint. Meanwhile, Dexter finished his juice pouch with a long slurp that echoed through the arena, pulled the straw out, and carefully placed the empty pouch back in his backpack. Recycling is important, he explained to nobody in particular, even in space. He looked up at Vrexar, saw the trembling, the cracks forming in the warrior's armor, the purple glow flickering like a dying star. Hey, seriously, are you okay? Dexter asked, and his concern sounded genuine. You look like you are about to pass out. We can call it here if you want. No shame in that. 10 Gs is impressive. You should be proud. The human was offering him an out. The human, standing comfortably under 10 times standard gravity, was worried about him. Vrexar's pride, already cracked, shattered completely. Vrexar's response was not verbal. It was primal. Somewhere deep in his Korthak warrior brain, past the logic, past the training, past the 47 victories, a switch flipped. The switch was labeled Pride Override, and it had been installed by evolution specifically for moments when rational thought needed to take a back seat to sheer stubborn refusal to accept reality. He pulled every last drop of energy from his reserves. His secondary organs began shutting down non-essential functions. His digestive system stopped. His immune system went on vacation. His body dumped every chemical it could produce into his bloodstream, stimulants and adrenaline analogs flooding his system in a cocktail that would probably require weeks of medical intervention to recover from. 12 gravities, his absolute maximum. The gravitational field became visible to the naked eye, a warping distortion that bent light itself. The arena floor cracked, actual cracks, spider webbing out from the epicenter. The protective barriers around the audience turned red, warning lights flashing. automated voices suggesting everyone run for their lives. Several people did. The purple glow around Rexar turned white hot. Steam rose from his carapace. His eyes, all six of them, rolled back slightly. And Dexter Flynn, standing at ground zero of this gravitational apocalypse, said, "Oh wow, okay, now that is something." He dropped down. For a moment everyone thought he had finally collapsed. Then his arms moved, extended, lowered him toward the ground in a controlled motion. He was doing push-ups. 1, Dexter counted, lowering himself until his chest nearly touched the sand. 2, 3, man, this is great. This is like resistance training and cardio combined. 4, 5. Quilmara made a sound in the commentary booth that her species usually reserved for witnessing the heat death of the universe. He is exercising. At 12 gravities. He is doing push-ups. Kresh had given up entirely. All three of his eyes were closed. He was pretending this was not happening. If he did not see it, it was not real. Dexter reached 20 push-ups, then flowed up to his feet with a grace that should have been impossible under 12 times Earth's gravity. He dropped into a squat, thighs parallel to the ground, then stood, repeated it. "You know what is funny?" he said, conversational as ever. "We have got these animals on Earth called ants. Tiny little things, smaller than your smallest finger. They can carry 50 times their own body weight. 50 times, and they do it all day, every day, just hauling stuff around. Squat, stand, squat, stand. And then we have got elephants, four-legged guys big as a small house. They can carry about 9,000 kilograms on their backs, in 1G, our gravity. They do it for fun, basically." He paused his squats, stood straight, and looked directly at Rexar. "My grandmother is 73 years old. She does water aerobics twice a week in a suit that adds resistance. Pretty sure she could handle this for at least 5 minutes without breaking a sweat." That was it. That was the final straw. Not the push-ups. Not the squats. The grandmother comment. Rexar's eyes rolled back completely. The white-hot glow flickered, sputtered, and died like a candle in a hurricane. His forearms dropped to his sides, limp and useless. His legs, which had been locked in place through sheer will, finally gave up on the whole standing concept. He toppled forward like a felled tree, crashed face first into the sand with a thud that registered on seismic monitors 3 levels down and did not move. The gravitational field vanished instantly, snapping back to normal station gravity so fast that several pieces of debris that had been pressed into the ground suddenly launched into the air. Dexter caught his juice pouch wrapper as it floated past his head. The medical drones swarmed Rexar's prone form, scanners flashing, emergency stabilizers deploying. Their readouts showed a Korthak warrior in severe metabolic shock, complete organ exhaustion, and what the medical database diplomatically termed catastrophic pride failure. Dexter walked over, carefully avoiding the medical drones, and looked down at his defeated opponent with genuine sympathy. "You gave it a good shot, buddy," he said softly. "Really impressive effort. You should rest now." The medical team descended on Rexar like a swarm of particularly concerned locusts. 6 drones, 2 hover gurneys, and 1 very stressed Peluvian doctor who kept muttering about organ damage and physiological collapse flooded the arena floor. They scanned, prodded, injected, and generally did all the things medical professionals do when someone has pushed their body past every reasonable limit and then kept going out of spite. "Severe energy depletion," the lead medical drone announced in its cheerful synthetic voice that did not match the severity of the diagnosis at all. "Multiple system failures. Stress fractures in the exoskeleton. Recommendation: immediate intensive care and 3 weeks of bed rest." The hover gurneys lifted Rexar's unconscious form with surprising gentleness, his 4 arms dangling limply over the sides, and whisked him away toward the medical bay. The crowd watched in stunned silence, the kind of silence that follows a natural disaster or a particularly shocking plot twist. Dexter, meanwhile, finished packing up his snack wrappers, zipped his backpack closed, and dusted sand off his pants. He did a few neck rolls, a couple of arm circles, and pronounced himself good to go. The referee orb floated back from its hiding spot in the corner, bobbing nervously like it was worried someone might notice it had abandoned its post. It emitted a half-hearted victory tone that sounded more like a question than a declaration. "Winner by opponent collapsed, Dexter Flynn of Earth." The announcer's voice came over the speakers, sounding like the man behind the microphone was having an existential crisis. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, in chaos. Arguments broke out in 17 different languages simultaneously. Bookmakers were being mobbed by people demanding their money back, insisting the fight had been rigged, fixed, or somehow staged. Others were frantically trying to place bets on any future fights, involving humans suddenly realizing they had been sitting on a goldmine of gambling opportunities. Dexter made his way to the payout window, weaving through the crowd with polite "excuse me" and "pardon me" statements that went largely unheard in the pandemonium. The Blenthian behind the counter looked at him like he was a ghost, a hallucination, or possibly a weapon of mass destruction in a human-shaped disguise. I bet 500 credits on myself," Dexter said, sliding his betting slip across the counter. "At 50-to-1 odds if I did the math right." The Blenthian's three-fingered hands shook as he processed the transaction. 25,000 credits transferred to Dexter's account with a soft chime. "How?" the Blenthian whispered. "How are you still standing?" Dexter shrugged. "Cardio, mostly, and vegetables. My mom always said to eat my vegetables." In the administrative offices overlooking the arena, Station Terminus 7's officials were having what could politely be called a complete meltdown. Monitors displayed biometric data from the fight, numbers that made no sense, readings that contradicted every known xenobiological principle. "Pull up everything we have on humans," the station commander barked at his assistant, a nervous Quillen who was already typing faster than his appendages were designed to move. "Their homeworld classification, atmospheric composition, gravity rating, everything." The data loaded. The officials read in silence. Then, as one, they all turned to look at the single word flashing at the top of Earth's planetary classification file: Deathworld. In smaller text below: "Caution. Inhabitants adapted to high gravity, high oxygen, extreme temperature variation environment. Approach with extreme care." "Why?" the station commander asked slowly. Did nobody read this before approving a human for gravitational combat? Nobody had an answer. Down in the arena, Dexter was signing autographs for a group of young aliens who had decided he was the coolest thing they had ever seen. The station media caught up with Dexter outside the arena, cameras hovering, microphones extended like accusatory fingers. A Rendorian reporter, her scales flushed with excitement, thrust a recording device toward his face. "Dexter Flynn, you just survived 12 gravities and defeated the undefeated champion. How do you feel?" Dexter considered the question while taking a sip from a water bottle someone had handed him. "Pretty good, actually. Got a decent workout in, had some snacks, made some money. Solid Thursday all things considered." "But how is this possible?" another reporter shouted from the back. "Your species should not be able to withstand such forces." "Oh right," Dexter said, like he had just remembered an important detail. "Yeah, Earth is classified as a death world. High gravity, aggressive wildlife, extreme weather, the whole package. We kinda grow up dealing with all that, so our bodies adapt. It is normal for us." The word death world rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. "Death world?" The Rendorian reporter's scales went pale. "You evolved on a death world and you are just walking around the galaxy like it is normal?" "Well yeah," Dexter shrugged. "I mean, where else would I walk around?" A Vexlarian journalist, trembling slightly, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Are there more of you? More humans coming to the station?" Dexter's face brightened. "Oh, tons. Earth just opened up tourism routes. We are super excited to see the galaxy. And hey," he addressed the cameras directly, giving them his best friendly smile, "if anyone else wants to try the gravity challenge, I am happy to go another round. Always nice to get some light exercise in before dinner." Light exercise. The human had just called 12 gravities light exercise. Somewhere in the medical bay, Vrexar regained consciousness just long enough to hear that statement before immediately passing out again, his body deciding that unconsciousness was the better option. The media crowd stood in stunned silence as Dexter waved goodbye, shouldered his backpack and headed toward the food court, casually mentioning something about trying the Thorgan noodle place he had heard good things about. Behind him, the galaxy collectively realized it had been operating under some very dangerous assumptions about the fragile-looking species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star, and in living rooms, bars, and public spaces across 1,000 worlds, beings watched the footage and came to the same inescapable conclusion. Humans were terrifying, and they did not even know it.